In this video help, we're going to be covering all the popover screens, and we're going to do one review here so you understand the difference between these two popovers. What we're going to start out by doing is just do a little recap so that you know where we're at. We have the client that we're actually doing the work for. We have the client company and the information for the client. We have the product that we're actually going to be at the top level talking about as far as the support, and the email for this particular client, and the next follow-up. If there's supposed to be a follow-up, you can add that here as far as the information, and it does scroll. This is a portal. The portal has individual rows. The rows are used for the tech person to establish what he's doing as far as the individual tasks that he's supposed to be doing the support for. So there'd be a short description of what the defect is and for what item is he working. So you're going to get like a task order. It'd be the number of items that need to be looked at as far as service and repair. At this detail popover, the detail popover in this case is describing the row content as far as the recommendations for that one item, as far as what it needs to have done, an image if you have one, a product data as far as the actual product information, and the part numbers that are involved for that particular product that you're working on. So on this row, and we use the analogy of a refrigeration or air conditioning system, and that could be, for example, talking about the evaporator and anything that's attached to it in this particular order as far as what's being worked on. If you have an issue on something else, for example, if you're working on a tractor and you're talking about the tracked vehicle part of it and you're disassembling it, and it's one liner, or it could be two or three, and I want you to understand it's up to the tech how he breaks it down. But the supporting information as far as what he's doing on each row item as a task is incorporated in this particular popover. Now, in this one, what this is the technical data for the overall task that you're doing for all the items. So what you're doing up here is you're taking the top level item. In this case, if it were an air conditioning system, we would be putting the information in for that, and it would be the top level part number. We'd have an image of the item over here, and the way these images work, you just click on them and you can either paste something or insert it. It's a little different on the iPad where you can take pictures using your iPad or iPhone and then access them through the drop down right here where it says add or remove a picture. It'll go out to the photo library where you've taken the pictures, and that's where they are, and then you can go ahead and add them in here. Now, what is this technical data actually involve? It is the overall process that you're going to be doing. For example, if you have a support issue, describe the detailed parts and issues that you're going to have to take care of as far as this entire task for all these items. Then you're going to go ahead, and the recommendations are actually how you're going to service this thing. And then the product data, as far as the product data is, add the technical data about the parts in this particular case. What are you going to try to accomplish in here, like replace and remove a item on the actual thing, like a TXV valve on the evaporator or something along that line. And it'd be different, obviously, between all the products that you support. And what this actually does is an overall tech support data as far as all these items that are in all the portal rows that you're working on. The next one is, let's go to the tech support data pool. Now what this is if you have information that is from a tech manual or a website and you copy and paste it into this screen, you would start out by having a support topic. Maybe it's row 1 and 2 or just row 1. And what you're doing is you're adding any technical information that is related to the service and repair of this particular item. It could be row 1 and 2 or just row 1. And what you're doing is you're saying, for example, if something had to be torqued down or something had to be safety wired, or one of the things you have to do before you actually work on the system is evacuate it or whatever. Well, this would be the technical information from the manufacturer or any technical documents I have that refer to this particular item. Now, in a lot of cases, you have all that information in your head. But in this particular case, what this database does is you may not be the person that follows up and has to know what you did. So what this is as you add any information here, it'll add the assignment number based on the work order that it's in. In this case, it would be number 1. and the inventory item and the support topic that you're talking about. In the case of an inventory item, that is the actual physical part that is in the inventory, so you understand what you're working on is from the inventory system. And the inventory part number is added here. Now, the technical data source is the item to where you, or the media that you got your information from. It may be a website, it may be whatever. And that's what you're going to be adding in this particular place. Like you would say, if this is a General Electric item and you said General Electric tech support URL, whatever. This one is the technical data added. This would be the date. So it's a drop down and you go ahead and add the date for the item that you're putting in there. And then the actual narrative for the tech support item that you're working on. You can either copy and paste this in, or you can go ahead and run a set of records that you want to paste in based on some images. Now, images would be put over here. You'd put the name of the image as far as what it is, and then if you click on this, it's going to allow you to insert the picture so you can have a picture of it. If you go to the portal from here, you'll get a blown up view of this thing, which is larger so you can see it. This is a sliding portal, so is this one. Anytime you see a sliding thing here, you'll recognize that if you add the data in here, it'll be a scrolling item. So you can have a number of topic items here, for example, based on the row or rows that you're working in. And then the images that are part of the technical data that describe in a photo, or you can put a PDF in here also if you want to. You would go ahead and put that in here, and then that way you would have a number of records technically and a number of images technically that support the task that you're doing. If you think about this, it sounds complex, but it really isn't. You're just basically tracking all the technical support media and data that you have in order to repair or service each one of these line items that you're talking about in here. And like I said, these both scroll. If you add a bunch of pictures, you just keep scrolling and you can have as many as you want for this particular service that you're providing. Okay, let's go to the next screen, which is the support inventory. The support inventory is a little more specific about how you're using it as far as it's required to use it. And in this particular case, as you add inventory data, you're creating an inventory record in the support inventory screen. So what you're actually doing is you're coming in and you can actually look at all the support items that are in your inventory, and they're also over here on this side so you can see if they're available or not. But basically what you're doing over here is you're confirming that the items that are in the inventory system, if that is in there, you would have it in there. If you go to add something and you are duplicating an entry that's already in the system, it's going to tell you that this is already in the inventory system. And all we're doing in this area is creating a on-the-fly inventory item if we need to put it in. So what you're doing is you're adding an individual item here that is going into the inventory that, if it has not already been entered, it should be added to this portal. And this is going to be for all the records in the entire database. So as you're working on something and you add a part number or a part item in there, you're actually creating an inventory record. Now, when you do the drop down, say for example it's already here, that's telling you not to put that in. It's already in the inventory system. Look over here, you can see if it's in there. Like for example, let's take outside services. If outside services is already displayed in this drop down, don't re-add it again, because you're going to get a message that will pop up and say that this is already in the inventory system. The whole purpose of this screen is to add new inventory items and verify that the other one is in the system. And so as you're adding new things, you can do them from the screen. You can then go to the portal. In this case, if you go to the portal, you're going to be going to the inventory record for this item. There'll be more expanded information other than just what you see here. When you go to that screen, it'll have some other portals and information that do further support as far as the support item that you're looking at here. Now, when you're working on this, you could go directly to the inventory system. But what you're doing is when you go to those records, you're amplifying more data as it's required. Now, this we'll get when we get to the inventory screen and start showing it to you in the videos. We're going to be explaining that this application is using what is called a closed loop inventory system. What that means is as you create a work order and invoice, you're putting a demand on the inventory system. If an item is not available in the inventory system, you'll see something like this. It'll say on hand -1, and the other data says on order none and receive none. When you add a new record, this will probably be how it's shown, meaning that and until you actually add inventory from the purchase order, you would add a purchase order and then it would populate as a closed loop. It would say there's so many on order and so many received. You will not actually get a received until the inventory item comes into your inventory system and it's added here as a received item. And say, for example, we ordered 10 of them. Well, it would go ahead and say quantity on order 10. And if you added the received 10, then this would be -1. Now it would be turned to -9 because the demand is for one of the items on hand if you don't have one. And that would be something that would be because it was used on a work order invoice and was not actually supplied. So you just put a demand from the work order saying, I need this part. Then it's in a waiting part, waiting for parts. Okay, so let's recap because this is kind of complex. I can also go to the individual item by clicking over here in the portal button to go to the inventory item for that particular item. I can see the narrative for it right here as far as what it is and the actual part number for the item. Now, when you're doing part numbers and creating them, you can use the vendor part number, but what I do is I suggest that you preface it by what it is. In this case, it's a filter, so F dash and then the part number. If it's labor, L dash. So all the labor items would all fall under the same grouping, and for example, outside labor, I just put it in there, outside services, because when I go to the individual unique item like an outside services, it doesn't really require a header or a unique ID before it. Part of the reason we're doing this is that when you're looking for an item in the inventory system, you want to group all the things that are like labor and machining, might be M, or other things in a preface here so that they're grouped properly. When you start indicating something like you type in L dash or M dash or O, what it's going to do is going to bring only that group of items that come up in the work order invoice for that header that you have on each part number. So it makes it easier to find those items in a group that are all related as like labor or whatever. So it's very it's up to you, but it's very important to make sure that it assists you. And for example, if I just put everything in as something odd, that it's not just labor, but it is really labor. For example, I put electrician help or something like that, and I didn't put a header on it, it would not come up as part of the labor group. Hopefully you understand. If you have questions, you can always contact us and we can give you more information about why we're doing this. This is based on many years of experience working with systems like this and doing a closed loop inventory system. Okay, so that covers most of what you're looking at as far as this is concerned. I want to point out that you can also go on an individual basis using the portal key up here, this button, to click on it, and it will go into the inventory system and find that particular record. Now, I want to repeat, if you drop this down and it's already in the inventory system, you don't have to necessarily go through thousands of items over here. Basically, if you start to enter it and it sees that it's not unique, it'll allow you to order it. If it's unique and you want to put it in there and it's not been put into the inventory system before, then you will be able to not put it in because it'll pop up for example, let's just go down and do that. We'll go down here. If I grab something and I put in outside services, this is what's going to happen. Part number is defined to contain a unique value. You must enter a unique value. And I'll say OK. And then I'm just going to back that out because I don't need it. It's not going to be in there, and I don't need to put it in there because it's already in the inventory system right there. And then I can also just click this, and it'll take me right into the inventory item for that. So this is how you would see it. And we'll come back and we're going to be doing this separately and explaining it. So I'm going to go back over to the technical data support. And the next thing we're going to be looking at is the vendor screen. Pretty straightforward. Basically, each time a new vendor is added to the application, you would create it in any record. It doesn't matter where you create it. This is adding a new record for that particular vendor. When you go to add a new vendor and it's a duplicate, once again, what it's going to do, it's going to pop up the same message you just saw that it has to be unique, telling you that it's already been entered in the system over in the vendor screen. And you can modify any of the gray fields, but you're not going to be modifying this or changing it to a different vendor's name. Once you create a vendor, you should keep it in there just like it was always entered, so that you're not causing an issue where one has already been used as in a, say like a work order, an invoice, or in the inventory system, where you don't want to repeat the same thing over and over and over again and then have some issues. Basically, when you create a vendor here, you're supplying the information for that vendor for all the rest of the screens in the application. Next one is purchase record. Purchase record is actually the header for each one of the purchase orders that you're doing. So this piece right here for this record is a header for the top of the record, and this is for Alan Green in this particular case. This is the purchase information as far as the order item ID. You can add the PO number. We'll be talking about that in a second. And then PO date and the vendor. You select the vendor from the drop-down list that you're actually purchasing the items from. The order sum is the total of the order, and this will automatically fill in for you in the actual record when you go to the PO order. But what you're doing is you're creating the PO over here in the main screen, and then you can visit the PO order and fill out the rest of the information for the purchase item. And so that would be for the Alan Green and the purchase order that's unique for his particular job that you're working on. So when you're in the main screen and you're looking at Alan Green as a client, you'll see all the work orders that were set up for Alan Green on this, or purchase orders for this particular task, and all the things that you're working on in this record. And of course, when you're actually in there and you're putting the items in the purchase order, it's going to run up the total for the order sum, the amount paid, the PO balance, and the purchase. This is your organization buying items to go into inventory, which is a purchase. We pop this over and you can see the actual purchase order, and this is for the one that we're working on right here. And I'll go ahead and talk about PO numbers and stuff like that when we get into this video. Let's go back to technical data. I'm going to pop over here just now because it's part of this thing that looks like it's a hierarchy. And what this is, this tells you what POs have been used. For example, when you're doing a PO and you add it over here, you could pop over and you could say, okay, the next PO that we're using is 1236, and then you would go ahead and add that into the system to add the next one. That is actually created though over here in the actual purchase order. So what you would do is, as you add this next number over here, it would be number 36 in the PO number over here. Not every client has a PO number, but in our particular case in this application, we're adding a PO number for each item that is in the system for the purchase data when the item is going to be purchased. It will be creating in here a purchase order. If you do not need a purchase order, and this you're not buying any parts, you're just doing service where you don't need any parts, then you would not create a purchase record, so you don't need a purchase order item number. Okay, the work order invoice, kind of similar in this particular case. What you have is a summary at the bottom of the work order that is the different items within the work order, and this is the header. So if you're working in the header, the actual summary for all the items that you have in this particular work order invoice are totaled down at the bottom of the screen, and then the individual records for up here, as you have line items and you're adding them, those items would be in here. And you can see that it says for Alan Green, and if you want to go to the work order list view, you can go here and see the work orders that have been created for this particular client or all clients. It has the different companies that you're using as far as the client company, and that's all the information for the client from the record set over here so that you understand what is actually being created. And as you create each individual work order from this screen and then go to the work orders and then look at adding the line items for that particular work order, that's what you would be seeing. So if I'm in this record and I want to go see this one, I would go there for this record. You can have as many records as you want in here for the work orders as far as the invoice data. The customer in this particular case is that work order to which this was created for. In this case it says test record, and if I go over here and I go to test record and I click on the invoice over here, you're going to see the work order invoice, and it says test record is who I created it for. Now, what I've done over here, which is something I shouldn't have done, is I did not change this back here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say, in this case, it's Alan Green, and Alan Green is the one person that we picked. So I'm updating it to make sure that all the data is being done here correctly. You'll see the work order number 1 is sequenced. That's automatically added by the database. And then the PO number is the unique purchase order number that you're using for the PO that you're working with. Obviously, in most cases, you're going to have some kind of parts that you need to have that you're going to be purchasing, and or things like labor. So you have labor and the part number for items that are in here. And remember, we said before, if you're dropping down, it's going to group the labor items so that they're easier to find as far as their prefix on the actual product. You can see one is here and one is there. It'll allow you to pick them off and put them in here, and then it'll fill in some of the information like the item's price. You just put the quantity in, it calculates it, and then the work order status is dropped down. We'll be coming back in here and we'll be doing more as far as explaining this screen. It's once you get the hang of it and you know what is going on with it, it makes it pretty easy to use. So let's go back over to technical data. Let's recap a little bit. We first talked about the detail record for the individual items as far as the detail information for that particular item and what it may need in inclusion in the total support data up here, where we're doing a broader description of what actually is being done based on all the items that we're working on down here. The technical support portal is the history of all the media and everything that's being used to support the tasks, and the information that is technical and telling you how to do the task that you're doing here. We have the support inventory, which is the actual inventory, and that's supporting fields over here to show you what's actually been added to the inventory, and you're actually creating inventory items that are not created already in the inventory system. Every time you create one of these, you're adding the top portion of the information for that particular inventory item, and when you go to the portal, you can finish it out as far as other information that's required. We'll cover that in detail in one of the next videos. Okay, and the same thing pertains to the PO numbers for the work order invoice. You create one for the purchase order and one for the invoice. It'll be the same sequential next item as far as the purchase order is concerned. Okay, if you have questions, I went through this fairly quick. You can repeat it if you need to until you grasp exactly what we're doing. But you have free technical support. So if you have questions and you're kind of stumped as how to do the item that we're talking about, or you don't completely understand it, you can always get in touch with us at ontargetsolutions.biz and create a chat. If we're not available at the time or we're busy with another client, just go ahead and add your email and give an explanation of what the questions are that you have as far as what you need answered. So if you have help, need help, let us know, and then we'll do that for you when you start a chat. You can also send us an email from the chat screen as far as putting your email in so we can get back to you using the email. Thank you.